Hello everyone, welcome to Crystal Point. My name is Lyndon and today we're going to bring you the second ever deck tech on this channel. Now the first video was pretty much a Lightning Ice control deck from Opus 1 that did very well, and it came third in the first ever Octagon Open tournament, which out of 60 players it came third overall. So a very strong deck, and not many people expected Lightning Ice to do so well, but Opus 2 is now here, and I originally saw this Archfiend deck, and I was just wondering to myself, that's a pretty stupid and crazy deck, and it does work because of all the backups. How can we make this deck even crazier and even more of just an insane brew? Because it's already 5 colours, so what else could we even do? And I thought to myself, how about we make all the Archfiends into Moogles? And then that's pretty much where this deck has come from. This deck is by no stretch of the imaginations a budget deck. It is not exactly a tier 1 deck. It's not it's not going to be top 18 world championships anytime soon. But it's pretty much a variant on an existing Archfiend deck. This deck is not for a new player. This is a very complex, very stupid, very over the top deck, and it requires a lot of practice to sort of get right. And if you go into the long game with this deck, it can just go off and you can do insane things with all the Moogles. So I'm going to take you through the forwards, the backups, and the summons, and pretty much explain to you how the deck is supposed to work. Just a quick little question for you more than anything else. The first deck tech I did was through like a virtual space. So you could also see the cards on some sort of virtual plane and graphics. Whereas this style is very much, well, you can see it, it's actual physical cards, and we'll be taking you through it physically. So I want to know from you guys, leave comments in the comment section below for any video and tell me which kind of style you prefer, whether you prefer the online sort of virtual style, or whether you prefer this where you actually get to pick up the cards, move them around, and actually get to talk about them. So please leave me your feedback. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like, and if you think this deck is stupidly insane, yeah, you're probably right, but we've got to have a little bit of fun, can't we? So, so without any further ado, guys, let's get into it. Right, so now we're going to the forwards, and first up we have 3 Scarmiglion, 2 cost Earth Archfiend 5000, and it has a very unique current trait of back attack, which, like summons and abilities, you're actually allowed to play this at any time. So you're allowed to play this, for example, during your opponent's attack step, and it's just pretty insane. But primarily, if you've got this early game in your opening hand and you've got a sorbet, you want to really play as many Moogles as early as possible. So unless you're going to use this as a surprise blocker, it's pretty much for getting a sorbet out, as well as many other Moogles as you can very early on. But this can always be brought back with Golbez later on in the game. So the idea is you try and get rid of as many Archfiends into the breakdown as possible, play as many Moogles as you can from them, and then play Golbez for very cheap, and then keep getting all the Archfiends back, and then just using the Moogle's ability. So overall, Scarmiglion, very strong. And the second Archfiend we have is Cagnazzo, 2 cost 5000. It cannot block a party, but when it blocks, it dulls itself as so. And while it's dull, it cannot take damage or receive. It cannot take damage, or it cannot deal any damage to either any creatures or any players. So it's very defensive card. If you're gonna get this early on in the game, you're gonna either want to use it as a blocker to try and stem the bleeding a bit, or you're going to use it to play Horn, and it's just going to be a really good blocker. And in the 3 drops, we now have Rosso, 3 cost 5000, and if she receives damage, halves that damage rounded up. Again, this is just like Cagnazzo, where it's a very good blocker. It's there to try and prevent your opponent from killing you too quickly. It's a great fight card to cast Mont Blanc and just help you out with those sorts of things. But if you get this early game, you're going to use it as the blocker, or just use it for Rubicante. Now, the Barbarisha combo here, the third Archfiend, a lot of the Archfiend decks I've seen really go pretty much to town with this. They use the Summoner, they use Dancer, anything to make this almost board wipe, a full board wipe anytime. Now, because we're using Moogles, as it's the most ridiculous deck pretty much ever made, I'm sure, you don't really focus on this Barbarisha combo as much. You pretty much use it to enable the Moogles, but you can use this still with Golbez's 3000 damage to all enemies on attack. So you can still use this ability for the board wipe, and because people will be used to seeing the normal kind of Archfiends, this is going to be pretty much a lightning rod against anything, and you're going to be pretty much free to use whatever you want for your lightning forwards. A very, very strong card, and the fourth and final Archfiend in the deck is Rubicante, 4 cost 9,000. When it attacks, you get to activate all of your forwards, all your opponent's forwards, sorry. And it has a little protection ability, so it can't be targeted by a specific element. So, a very strong attacker, a very strong defender, and it has a potential almost Aerith ability. So it's very, very strong. Again, if you're going to draw, if you get all of these Archfiends early game, and you have Moogles of the same colour, immediately just discard these for the Moogles of that colour, because that's what's going to get you the game late game. Because this deck does not do early aggression. You really need to get a cheap Golbez out there, use it to bring back more Archfiends to activate more Moogles, and then you just keep the engine going like so. Again, anything that we're not using directly as Moogle for the gimmick, or we're using Golbez to pretty much just achieve the gimmick, or just to really hammer in with Archfiends, we're pretty much just trying to stem the bleeding, which is what Rosso comes in, and Cloud of Darkness. So if they're spamming the field, they've got lots of forwards out. You play two of these Clouds of Darknesses, and it reduces down to 1. And if you've got a Golbez out, you're obviously going to pick a Golbez or a Sephiroth, and it really just a good way of controlling the board, not much more to say. Now we're on to the big daddies, the 8-costers, and this Golbez is pretty much insane. As I said before, you're going to try and get rid of all of the Archfiends from your hand as possible early in the game to play as many Moogles as you can. And that allows you to play this guy really, really cheap and start using him for a lot of value. Bring back any Archfiend, dull an opponent's forward, or deal 3k to everything. So it's really good against the Opus 1 Golbez deck, really. And a lot of weenie decks, a lot of mono water maybe. It's just a pretty insane card once you get used to it. So when you get 4 Archfiends with different names in the break zone, you can just play this for free, maybe after a Shantotto or a Cloud of Darkness, and you're in a very, very strong position. Cannot tell you guys enough how insane this guy is, and you really need him to make the Moogle combo really work. And just because we're going with the ridiculous 5-colour gimmick, is an 8-cost Sephiroth with First Strike, and when it comes to the battlefield, then just choose a backup and break it. Yeah, we're running 5 colours, why not just go all out? This is a silly gimmick deck. Surprisingly, if it gets to a really long game, the deck really does actually shine. It can get quite scary at times, and you're going to see soon, with the summons especially, how this is all achieved. But this Sephiroth is fantastic as a pseudo blocker, great as an attacker, but you're mostly going to use this as a defender, maybe with Sorbet to push him up to 9, 10, 11, 12k maybe. And he's just insane once he gets out. And if they've got a troublesome Minwu or an Aerith or something like that, use Sephiroth and you'll be able to break it quite easily. Now onto the backups, and you're going to sense a theme here, but we've got all the Moogles except for the Ice Moogle. We've got Mont Blanc here. Discard, I'll just pay 2 5 CP and dull him to choose a forward and deal 1,000 for each Moogle you control. Now in this deck, because we're running all the Moogles and almost anything, just almost all Moogles and nothing but Moogles, if you have 5 backups on the field, you have a minimum of 4 Moogles out at any one time. So this can do a minimum, once you've got going, a minimum of 4k, and if you reactivate all the backups again, using a Sora, you can reactivate this ability again, and it gets stronger when you use Hashmill, which I'll discuss in more detail in a minute. But yeah, this is just one of the Moogles, and there's plenty more to go through. We have the Wind Moogle, no, you're allowed to activate forwards with this one, again, equal to the number of Moogles you control. A very strong defensive card, or if you've got your engine rolling and you just want to attack and defend at the same time, this is great. Just discard one of your wind cards that you probably brought back with Golbez, so Barbarisha. Discard Barbarisha, oh look, all of your guys are now active again. Very, very strong Moogles when they get going. Pretty much the most important Moogle, in my opinion, for this kind of deck is Horn. This guy allows you to draw so many cards equal to the number of Moogles and put them back on the bottom of the deck, and it's pretty much going to be your colour fixer. Once you've got 3 or 4 Moogles out, or even more Moogles, it's just insane. You'll just draw up to, I've drawn up to 9 or 10 cards per turn. Colour fixes you, finds all your answers, finds all your Golbezes, all your backups, all the summons. anything you need. So if you have to play Shantotto and you're left with 4 Moogle spots, ensure this is on one of those spots, because without it the deck will not function half as well, especially in the late game. Now, a great little blocker, not used as often as some of the Moogles, but very useful when the time's right, is Sorbet. Activate this mostly with Sephiroth, and you'll just have an almost invincible blocker for the turn, and nearly every turn. It gives everyone a blocking forward 1,000 for every Moogle you control, so you can potentially give a guy 5,000 or even more, and it's just insane. Again, early game you want to try and play as many Moogles as possible, and by discarding as many Archfiends as possible to try to make the engine cheap and quick as possible. And the final Moogle is Gertie. Gertie is fantastic against early game aggression. If you have a lot of Moogles out, you manage to get quite a few Moogles out early game. Kill their hero snows and as such like that. Now, this Moogle is pretty much key to casting Golbez if you have not got all of the Archfiends in the break zone early game. So if you can try and get this one out as well as Horn, they're your 2 key ones, and the rest are pretty much bonuses from that point. So these are all the Moogles. And just in case things go terribly wrong, we've got 2 Shantotto here. Instant board wipe allows you to act for CP of any mana, so if you've got this and one other Moogle out, just stall this and one other Moogle, and you can play any of the other Moogles in the entire deck. It's not a problem. All it does is just reduce your Moogle engine down by 1, which is a bit of a shame, but sometimes you really need good board wipes, and Shantotto is the best there is. Okay, so this is the card that you really want in the deck late game. This is the one where this is your holy grail. This is what's going to make the deck even more insane as it already is. Hashmill, 1 cost, name an element or a job, and all forwards you control gain that job or element and gain 1,000 power till end turn. So it can be a surprising little savior if they're trying to kill a particular forward that deals exact amount of damage. But mostly, this is to pretty much make the Moogle engine go into overdrive and make it completely insane. You can have, I've had it before where I've had 6 forwards out and I've got 4 or 5 Moogles in the backups. Activate Hashmill for 1. You declare Moogle. Now you've got 10 Moogles, and if you've got 5 or 6 cards left in your hand at the time, you're gonna have a really fun time. Activate Gertie for reducing something by 10k. Mont Blanc, deal 10k damage. No, activate 10 forwards like you can anyway, but Horn, you can draw 10 cards and then put 10 to the bottom, so you can pretty much draw your entire deck in 1 turn and just filter out what the cards you need. It's just insane what this card can do with this kind of Moogle deck. Also all your Archfiends become Moogles, which I just find hilarious, which was pretty much the whole sort of premise for the whole deck really was. I wonder what would happen if you can make all your Archfiends into Moogles and just make a 5-colour deck the most insane it can. But yeah, if you get one of these out, if you combo off with, so even if you've got all the 10 Moogles equivalent out, and you're doing all this crazy stuff with all your Moogles, the fun doesn't quite end with 1 activation each. And that's because of this card, Asura. And you're mostly going to use this for the second ability, which is activate all your backups. So if you've got 4 or 5 Moogles in play, and you've activated Hashmill, or even if you just want to have a second go on all your Moogles, activate this, activate all your Moogles again, and you get to use their ability twice. So Gertie comes back in, dealing, reducing power by 8k, Horn drawing another batch of cards, Mont Blanc for dealing a second amount of damage. It's just insane. Sometimes you will, if you're really desperate for a certain Moogle, you can use the character card of 2 cost or less to get a Horn or a Gertie back, so you can help play Golbez or search for answers. But primarily you're going to use this to fetch Moogle, to activate all your Moogles and make the engine go off twice in 1 turn and make it insane. 2 Leviathan, pretty much we need to make sure we have enough of every colour to make sure all the colours are playable. So 2 Leviathan is a fantastic strong summon, and it helps to play Horn, it helps to play Cagnazzo, and it's just a really strong backup, and an EX burst. So there isn't many EX bursts in this kind of silly Moogle deck, but it's really appreciated. 3 of the 4 cost Odin, not much more to say about this. Not everyone's already felt its justice once in a while, and it's just insane. This helps. There's a reason there's 3 of them in the deck. You get to play Gertie, you get to play Golbez if you have to cost, and it really helps destroy some of the early game aggression. So it's just all these summons are really there for either making the Moogle combo get even more ridiculous, or just a board wipe, or just destroy a certain forward. And finally, because we're running 5 colours and we're playing all this high costing silly stuff, why not go with 2 more Bahamut? Again, destroying their board, pretty much killing anything in the game, 9 costing, so if you're playing 4 or 5 Moogles, why not just go with the whole, just why not go all out and play Bahamut, eh? Why not? 2 of these, it does save you many, many times, combined with Odin, Leviathan, Shantotto, Cloud Darkness, all of these helps control the board, kill what's on the board, and let your Moogle engine really get going. And there we have it, guys. That is your Moogle Archfiend deck, and it's the most ridiculous 5-colour deck I've personally ever seen, drafted, made, played with, and it's hilarious once it gets off, and it doesn't always work, especially against aggro, but once you've got it going, it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. When you've got 10 activations of Moogle, drawing 10 cards, dealing 10k damage, reducing by 10k, and then activating a sword to do it all again. And just the thought of having Sephiroth and Golbez as a Moogle, as well as all the Archfiends, it's just hilarious to me. So it's just a ridiculous deck, and you're just playing every pretty much high cost thing under the sun. But somehow, if you last long enough and you've got your element management right, it really works sometimes. And it has beaten Mono Lightning in the past. It's really weird. But yeah, it's a very silly deck, and not many people expect it. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, please leave a like. Please leave a comment on which kind of style of video you prefer, whether you prefer using the real life cards like this, or whether you prefer a more virtual experience, as you've seen in the first ever deck tech, which I'll leave a link to in the cards up in the top right. If you haven't subscribed yet to Crystal Point, then please subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've seen. I hope you have a good one, guys.